Imagine for a moment the stillness of a quiet room, the kind where every sound, every breath, every creak feels amplified. In that solitude, there's a peculiar tension, isn't there? It's the kind of space where the noise of the world fades away, leaving only the voice you'd rather not confront, your own. And yet, it is in this very silence, this aloneness, that something remarkable begins to unfold. It may feel unsettling at first, like being stripped of the comfortable chaos that surrounds us. But perhaps this solitude is not a punishment, nor a state to flee from, but rather an invitation to discover, to grow, and to become. Perhaps it's the only space vast enough to let us wrestle with our doubts and fears, and yet tender enough to cradle our awakening. So, as we explore this idea together, I urge you to consider, could this aloneness, this divine design of quiet, be the path towards something far greater? Could it be the way we're shaped into who we were always meant to be? Let us dive into this mystery and uncover its purpose. The world is filled with ceaseless noise, a restless hum of distractions that keeps us from looking too deeply within ourselves. We are often surrounded by people, activity, and endless tasks that demand our attention, leaving little room for stillness. Yet, amidst all this motion, there are moments when we are called into solitude, not as a punishment or misfortune, but as a vital chapter in our journey. This solitude may not come by choice. It might arrive in the form of loss, rejection, or a season of unanswered prayers. But regardless of how it manifests, solitude carries with it an unmistakable purpose, one that is profoundly tied to our spiritual growth. To be alone can feel unsettling at first. It strips away the reassuring voices of others and confronts us with our own inner dialogue. It reveals what we often seek to hide in the noise of our daily lives, our fears, insecurities, and doubts. But it is precisely in this revelation that the purpose of solitude begins to unfold. When all else is removed, we are left face to face with the essence of who we are. There we find an opportunity to ask the questions we avoid, to confront the truths we bury, and to seek clarity about the deeper longings of our hearts. Solitude is not an empty void, nor is it a barren wasteland. It is a sacred space where transformation takes root. In the quiet, we become aware of the things that have held us back, the voices of the world that have shaped us, more than the voice of the divine. It is in this quiet that we can unlearn the patterns of pride, selfishness, or despair, and begin to reshape our hearts in alignment with something greater. Today, solitude is the animal spirit within us, guiding us to the voice of the voice of the voice. This process is not comfortable. It often requires us to sit with our pain, to feel the weight of our shortcomings, and to wrestle with our deepest questions. Yet, through this discomfort, we are being refined. Solitude also teaches us reliance. When we are surrounded by others, it is easy to lean on their strength, their wisdom, or their approval. But when we are alone, we are drawn into a deeper dependence, not on the fleeting comforts of the world, but on the enduring presence of the one who calls us into this solitude. In these moments, we learn to trust not in our own understanding, but in a wisdom far greater than our own. We discover that even in the absence of human company, we are never truly alone. There is a presence that meets us in our solitude, a presence that listens when no one else will, comforts when no one else can, and strengthens when our own strength fails. Through solitude, we also gain clarity. The noise of the world often drowns out the whispers of truth. In the quiet, those whispers become clear. We begin to discern the path we are meant to take, the purpose we are called to fulfill, and the values that truly matter. Solitude gives us the space to reflect, to listen, and to align our hearts with the will of the one who created us. It is in this alignment that we find direction and purpose. The choices we make in solitude, when no one is watching, when there is no applause, are often the most significant. They reveal who we are at our core and set the course for our future. Furthermore, solitude strengthens us for the challenges ahead. Life is not without its trials, and the road we walk is often marked by difficulties. The strength we gain in solitude prepares us for these moments. It equips us with resilience, patience, and a faith that does not falter when the storms of life come. In solitude, we are reminded that our worth is not defined by the opinions of others. Our success is not measured by worldly standards, and our identity is not rooted in what we do, but in who we are. This understanding fortifies us, enabling us to face life's trials with courage and grace. Solitude is also a time of deep intimacy, where we can cultivate a relationship that goes beyond surface-level rituals or fleeting emotions. In the quiet, we learn to listen, to pour out our hearts, and to be still. It is here that we experience the depth of love that surpasses all understanding, a love that does not waver, a love that does not depend on our perfection, a love that meets us right where we are. This love transforms us, teaching us to love others more fully and to live with greater compassion and humility. Moreover, solitude allows us to see the world with new eyes. When we step away from the busyness of life, we begin to notice the beauty we often overlook. We see the wonder in creation, the value in relationships, and the opportunities to serve and bless others. Solitude shifts our perspective, helping us to recognize the gifts we have been given and the responsibility we have to use them wisely. It reminds us that our lives are not our own, but are part of a greater story, one that is unfolding in ways we may not yet fully understand. It is important to note that solitude is not the same as isolation. Isolation is born out of fear or bitterness. It seeks to separate and divide. Solitude, on the other hand, is born out of purpose. It seeks to renew and restore. While isolation closes us off from the world, solitude prepares us to re-engage with it. It equips us to return to our relationships, our work, and our communities with a renewed sense of purpose and a clearer understanding of our role in the world. This journey through solitude is not one we would naturally choose. It requires courage to step away from the noise, to face our inner struggles, and to trust in the process of transformation. But it is a journey worth taking, for it is in the quiet that we are shaped, in the stillness that we are strengthened, and in the solitude that we find the clarity and purpose we need to fulfill our calling. There are times when we find ourselves utterly alone, not just physically, but within the deepest corridors of our minds. In such moments, the natural inclination is to retreat further, to view the solitude as an affliction or punishment. Yet, it is in these very moments that a profound truth begins to emerge. The stillness we so dread may be the very forge in which we are shaped, the silence a canvas on which divine purpose is etched. To be alone is not to be abandoned. It is to be invited into a sacred space where distractions are stripped away, where the superficial fades, leaving only what truly matters. Loneliness, properly understood, is not the absence of others, but the presence of something deeper, something eternal and unyielding. It is here, in the quiet chambers of isolation, that the soul learns to commune with its Creator and to understand itself more fully. Strength is not born in the crowd. It does not come from the noise and clamor of life's endless busyness. True strength, the kind that sustains and uplifts, grows in the soil of solitude. When we are alone, we are not overlooked by God. Rather, we are placed in a sanctified space, where distractions no longer muffle the gentle whisper of His guidance. The world, with all its glitter and endless chatter, has a way of dulling our senses to that which is eternal. In the stillness of isolation, however, our vision clears, and our hearts tune themselves to the frequencies of divine wisdom. What feels like abandonment is, in truth, preparation. What seems like loss is, in fact, gain of the most precious kind. In the loneliness of a single night or the solitude of a long season, God often plants seeds of purpose. These seeds grow roots, not in the fertile fields of ease, but in the rocky ground of trials. For it is when we have nothing but Him that we begin to see that He is everything. Alone, stripped of pretense and performance, we find that our identity is not built upon the applause of others, but upon the steady foundation of divine love. Isolation teaches the soul to breathe deeply. It forces us to sit with the questions we fear, the doubts we bury, and the truths we avoid. In this wrestling, we learn that the darkness cannot overwhelm us, for even in the absence of earthly companionship, we are never truly alone. Consider the heroes of faith, those who walked paths that were often solitary. Was it not in the wilderness that Moses encountered the burning bush? Was it not in the belly of the great fish that Jonah's heart was redirected? Was it not in the barren desert that Christ Himself prepared for His mission, alone with His thoughts and His Father? These stories are not anomalies, but echoes of a divine principle. Solitude is not a curse, but a calling. When the noise of the world recedes, and we are left with nothing but the sound of our own breath, a revelation unfolds. We discover that strength is not found in what we possess or what we achieve, but in who we are becoming. And who we are becoming is forged not in moments of ease, but in moments of quiet struggle, when the only voice we hear is the one that has been whispering to us all along. In this sacred silence, we are given the chance to realign our hearts with the divine will. It is an opportunity to let go of the false security we have built in relationships, achievements, and accolades. It is a time to learn that our value does not come from the external, but from the eternal. Alone we find clarity. Alone we find courage. Alone we find the strength that does not waver in the face of life's storms. Alone we find the strength that does not waver in the face of life's storms. The sacred safety of the eater in the staring desert shell is an object. To be alone is not to be forgotten. It is to be chosen. Chosen to grow, to deepen, to prepare for a purpose that extends beyond the fleeting concerns of this world. And as we embrace this solitude, we begin to understand that it is not emptiness we are experiencing, but a fullness that only the presence of God can provide. There is a yearning within every human soul to understand who we truly are. It is a desire that stirs quietly beneath the surface of our daily lives, often hidden beneath the noise of ambition, relationships, and responsibilities. Yet at some point, every heart feels that tug, a longing to uncover its deepest essence, to find a sense of meaning that goes beyond the fleeting pursuits of the world, longing to be alive, how far we are able to go, and to discover oneself is not merely a matter of introspection or self-analyzation. It is a sacred journey, one intricately woven into a greater design. For we are not accidents of chance or mere products of circumstance. We are intentional creations, formed with purpose, and it is in the unfolding of this purpose that our true selves are revealed. To begin this journey, one must first set aside the illusions that cloud our understanding of identity. We live in a world that constantly whispers false definitions of who we are. It tells us that our worth is measured by our achievements, our possessions, or the opinions of others. It tempts us to believe that our identity is found in titles, appearances, or fleeting moments of recognition. These are shadows, reflections of something deeper, but never the thing itself, and yet many spend their lives chasing these illusions, only to find that they leave the soul empty and unfulfilled. True discovery begins when we step away from these illusions and ask the deeper questions. Who am I beyond what I do? Who am I when no one is watching? What was I created for? These questions cannot be answered by the world, for the answers lie in the heart of the one who formed us. We are not random. we are intentional. We are not self-created. We are crafted. And just as a work of art reflects the vision of its artist, so too does our true self reflect the purpose and plan of the one who created us. This process of discovery is not always straightforward. It often begins with a stripping away, a season where we are called to let go of the things we once clung to for identity. This may be a difficult and even painful process, for it requires us to confront the falsehoods we have believed about ourselves and the sources of security we have relied upon. It may feel like we are losing ourselves, but in truth, we are being set free. For it is only when we release the false that we can embrace the true. As we let go of these illusions, we begin to see ourselves through a new lens. We start to understand that our value does not come from what we accomplish, but from who we are. We begin to grasp that our identity is not something we create for ourselves, but something we receive. It is a gift, not a task, a revelation, not a reward. And it is rooted in a relationship with the one who knows us more intimately than we know ourselves. This relationship is not distant or impersonal, it is profoundly personal. It is in this intimacy that we begin to uncover the unique design of our lives. Each of us is crafted with intention, with gifts, strengths and passions that are uniquely our own. These are not random traits, but deliberate markers of purpose, clues that point us toward the role we are meant to play in the greater story. To discover our true self is to discover the part we are called to play, the contribution we are meant to make, and the ways in which our lives are meant to bring light and goodness to the world. Bipold. This discovery also involves confronting our limitations, for as much as we are gifted, we are also flawed. We carry within us weaknesses, wounds, and tendencies that can hinder us if left unchecked. But even these, when surrendered to the greater plan, can be transformed into sources of strength and growth. Our flaws do not define us, nor do they disqualify us. Instead, they remind us of our dependence on the one who is greater than we are. In this dependence, we find freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever we please, but the freedom to become who we were created to be. As we walk this path, we begin to see that our true self is not an isolated entity. We are not created to exist in isolation, but to live in relationship with the Creator, with one another, and with the world around us. Our identity is most fully realized not in selfish pursuits, but in acts of love, service, and community. It is in giving of ourselves that we find ourselves, in pouring out that we are filled. This paradox is one of the great mysteries of life, yet it is also one of its greatest truths. This journey of discovery is not without challenges. There will be moments of doubt, times when the path feels unclear or the process seems slow. There will be times when the false voices of the world try to draw us back into their illusions. But in these moments, we must remember that the journey is not ours to undertake alone. There is a guiding hand, a voice that whispers in the silence, a presence that walks with us every step of the way. It is this presence that gives us strength when we feel weak, clarity when we feel confused, and hope when we feel discouraged. As we continue on this journey, we begin to see the world differently. We recognize that our lives are part of a greater story, one that is rich with meaning and purpose. We see that every experience, every challenge, and every moment of joy or sorrow has shaped us in ways we could not have anticipated. We see that even our greatest struggles have a purpose, for they have refined us and drawn us closer to the truth of who we are. This journey is not about perfection. It is not about becoming something we are not, but about uncovering the beauty and purpose of who we already are. It is about stepping into the fullness of our design, embracing both our strengths and our weaknesses, and living with the confidence that comes from knowing we are deeply loved and intricately crafted. In this process, we also learn to extend grace to ourselves and to others. We recognize that just as we are on a journey of discovery, so too is everyone around us. We learn to see the beauty in others, to celebrate their unique gifts, and to support them in their own paths. This mutual encouragement strengthens the bonds of community and reminds us that we are not alone. The journey of discovering our true self through the greater plan is one that transforms not only our understanding of ourselves, but also our understanding of life itself. It is a journey that calls us to step into the unknown, to embrace the mystery, and to trust in the purpose for which we were created. It is a journey that leads us not to fleeting happiness, but to deep joy, not to momentary success, but to lasting significance. And it is a journey that, once begun, changes everything. There is a paradox at the heart of human existence. To connect deeply with others, we must first learn the art of being alone. It seems contradictory, does it not? Yet, as with so many truths of life, it is in the paradox that the beauty resides. Being alone is not merely an absence of others. It is the presence of oneself in its truest form. It is in solitude that we are shaped for the connections that will later enrich our lives. When we are alone, stripped of the noise and expectations of the world, we come face to face with the essence of who we are. The masks we wear in the presence of others fall away, and the truths we often avoid can no longer be ignored. This confrontation is not an easy thing. Indeed, it is often uncomfortable, even painful. Yet it is necessary. For how can we hope to offer our truest selves to others if we have not first come to know and accept that self in the quiet chambers of solitude? Being alone teaches us patience. In the absence of immediate affirmation or distraction, we learn to wait, to listen, and to grow. This patience, cultivated in solitude, becomes a gift in our relationships. We begin to understand that true connection is not built on instant gratification, but on the steady, deliberate weaving together of lives. It is in the quiet of our own hearts that we develop the capacity to hold space for others, to listen, not merely to their words, but to the unspoken cries of their souls. Solitude also refines our perspective. When we are constantly surrounded by others, it is easy to adopt their views, to be swept along by the current of popular opinion. But in the stillness of being alone, we gain the clarity to see things as they truly are. We begin to discern what is eternal from what is fleeting, what is meaningful from what is trivial, the stillness of the mind from what is fleeting, what is meaningful from what is trivial. This clarity is essential for genuine connection, for it allows us to approach others not with selfish motives, but with a heart tuned to their true needs. In our aloneness, we also learn the value of gratitude. The absence of companionship often heightens our appreciation for it. We begin to see that relationships are not something to be taken for granted, but are, rather, a sacred gift. This gratitude transforms the way we approach connection. No longer do we seek others merely to fill a void within ourselves. Instead, we approach them with a sense of wonder, recognizing the divine beauty in every soul we encounter. Being alone also strengthens our capacity for empathy. In solitude, we experience our own struggles, fears, and longings with a raw intensity that is often muted in the presence of others. This depth of feeling enables us to enter into the struggles of others with a deeper understanding. We begin to see that their joys and sorrows are not so different from our own. This shared humanity becomes the foundation upon which true connection is built. Furthermore, solitude teaches us to rely not on others, but on the divine. When we are alone, the props and crutches of the world are stripped away, leaving us with no one but God to lean upon. This reliance is not a sign of weakness, but of strength, for it is in our dependence on Him that we find the freedom to love others without demanding from them what they cannot give. We are no longer seeking to fill our emptiness with their presence. Instead, we are free to give of ourselves from the overflow of a heart already full. Preparation for connection also requires a certain humility, and solitude is the great teacher of humility. When we are alone, we are confronted with our own limitations, our own faults and frailties. This awareness of our own imperfection makes us more forgiving, more understanding, and more compassionate toward others. It allows us to approach relationships not with a sense of superiority or entitlement, but with a posture of grace. Perhaps most importantly, being alone allows us to discover our purpose. In the quiet of solitude, we begin to hear the still, small voice of the Creator, calling us to the work He has prepared for us. This sense of purpose gives direction to our connections. We are no longer drifting aimlessly, seeking others merely for the sake of companionship. Instead, we are drawn to those whose lives intersect with our purpose, creating connections that are not only meaningful, but also transformative. Solitude, then, is not a season to be dreaded, but a gift to be embraced. It is the forge in which we are refined, the soil in which the seeds of future connections are planted. To rush through it, or avoid it altogether, is to miss the profound work it is meant to accomplish. It is in the stillness of being alone that we are prepared to step into the fullness of relationship, not as half-formed beings seeking completion, but as whole, vibrant souls, ready to give and receive in love. What a marvel it is to think that the very aloneness we so often resist is in fact the means by which we are prepared for the deepest joys of connection. It is in the quiet, in the waiting, in the wrestling, that we are made ready to meet others not as mere acquaintances, but as companions on the journey, fellow travelers on the path to eternity. In this light, solitude is not a void, but a sacred space, a holy preparation for the rich tapestry of connection that awaits. Loneliness is often perceived as a curse, a state to be avoided at all costs, a condition to be filled with distractions or cured by the presence of others. It carries with it a deep sense of isolation, a haunting quiet that can stir up feelings of abandonment or rejection. Yet what if this loneliness, rather than being a misfortune, is a divine invitation? What if, in the silence and solitude, there lies an opportunity for profound transformation, a space where our deepest growth can take place? To see loneliness in this light is not to deny its pain, but to recognize the possibility of something far richer, far deeper, than mere companionship could provide. Loneliness, in its purest form, strips away the masks we wear. It forces us to confront the raw, unvarnished self that we often hide from others and even from ourselves. In the busyness of life, it is all too easy to lose sight of who we are beneath the surface. We become caught up in the expectations of others, in the need to fit into certain roles or to meet certain standards. But when left alone, when the noise of the world quiets down, we are faced with the reality of our inner world. It is in this confrontation with the self that we begin to discover the parts of us that have been neglected, ignored, or suppressed. Rather than running from this discomfort, we are called to embrace it, for it is in this very space that we are shaped and refined. Loneliness has a way of peeling back the layers, of drawing us into the depths of our own hearts, where we encounter not only our wounds, but also our true potential. In the stillness, we are invited to listen to the voice that calls us, not from the noise of the world, but from within the quiet of our own hearts. It is a voice that speaks of who we are meant to be, not who others have told us to be. And it requires the solitude of loneliness to hear it clearly. Embracing loneliness as a divine opportunity for growth means seeing it as a time to reconnect with our spiritual essence. In a world that often values busyness and productivity, it can be easy to forget that we were made for something greater than the endless cycle of work and activity. We were made for communion, not just with others, but with the divine. Loneliness, far from being a void, is the space where we can rediscover that communion, where we can deepen our relationship with the one who knows us most intimately. In this solitude, we learn to listen for the whisper of the divine presence that calls us to something higher, something eternal. In embracing loneliness, we also learn to develop our inner resources. We often look to external sources for validation, for love, for comfort. Yet, in loneliness, we are called to cultivate these things within ourselves. We are reminded that the strength, love, and peace we seek in others are first cultivated in our own hearts. It is not that relationships and community are unimportant. They are in fact vital to our growth and well-being. But the ability to stand firm in our own identity, to find comfort and peace in solitude, is a gift that comes from within. Loneliness teaches us to rely on our inner strength, to discover that we are not defined by the presence or absence of others, but by the presence of the divine within us. Loneliness also offers us the space to reflect, to pause, and to gain perspective. In the rush of daily life, it is all too easy to be swept away by the demands and distractions that pull us in every direction. We move from one task to the next, rarely stopping to ask the deeper questions of life. Why am I here? What is the purpose of my existence? What is my true calling? Loneliness forces us to stop, to look inward and to reflect on the bigger picture. It provides the stillness necessary for self-examination, for discerning the path we are meant to walk, and for aligning our lives with the deeper purpose for which we were created. This time of solitude also allows for healing. Many of us carry deep wounds from past relationships, from disappointments, from failures or hurts that have shaped the way we view ourselves and the world around us. These wounds can be difficult to face, and often we bury them beneath layers of activity, relationships, or distractions. But in loneliness, we are given the space to confront these wounds head-on. We can allow ourselves to feel the pain, to process the grief, and to invite healing into the places where we have been broken. This process of healing is not quick or easy, but it is necessary for growth. It is in the quiet of loneliness that the balm of healing can be applied to the deepest parts of our souls, bringing about a restoration that can only come from the divine hand. Loneliness also fosters creativity and personal expression. When we are surrounded by others, there is often a tendency to conform, to fit into predefined molds, to live according to the expectations placed upon us. But in solitude, we are freed from these constraints. We are given the space to explore our passions, our desires, and our creativity, without fear of judgment or expectation. This is the time when new ideas are born, when dreams take shape, and when we are free to express our true selves without the pressure of conforming to others' standards. It is in the quiet of loneliness that we often find our voice, the voice that is uniquely ours, untainted by the opinions of others. Moreover, loneliness teaches us patience and perseverance. Growth, whether personal, spiritual, or creative, is rarely instantaneous. It requires time, effort, and the willingness to remain faithful even in the midst of isolation. Loneliness often feels like a barren land, devoid of immediate results or rewards. Yet it is in this very barrenness that growth takes place. Just as a seed must lie in the dark soil, away from the light, before it can sprout and grow, so too must we endure the solitude of loneliness before we see the fruits of our growth. This period of waiting, though difficult, teaches us the value of patience and the beauty of trusting that, in time, something new will emerge from the soil of our souls. Now is the time that things change in the dark soil, and the seed must lie in the dark soil if we are to reap out of it. Embracing loneliness as a divine opportunity for growth is not about resigning ourselves to a life of solitude. It is not about seeking isolation for its own sake. Rather, it is about recognizing the unique role that loneliness plays in our spiritual journey. It is about understanding that within this solitude we have the chance to grow, to heal, to discover our true selves, and to deepen our relationship with the divine. Loneliness, when embraced in this light, becomes a space of sacred potential, a place where transformation occurs and where we are shaped into the people we are meant to be. It is not a curse, but a divine opportunity. And so, when you find yourself alone, remember that it is not abandonment, but invitation. God calls you into solitude, not to leave you empty, but to fill you with strength, purpose and clarity. In the stillness, he shapes you, preparing you for greater connections, deeper understanding, and a life rooted in his will. What feels like loneliness is his hand molding you into the person you are meant to become. Trust the process, embrace the quiet, and know that in your solitude, you are never truly alone. For he is with you, working all things for your good. End of section 5. Recording by James O'Connell, London, England.